Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. Of travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Tullamore, Seymour, Lismore, Lulaban, Nambour, Rochester, Kilmore, Marillabah, Birdsville, Emmaville, Wallaville, Connemara, Connemara, Strathround, Proserpine, Alladala, Darwin, Gingin, Lilliquin, Muckdilla, Wallumbilla, Bougainville, Cumberland, Ramakiller. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man.
I think you'll find that if we go through the entire Lucky Star song, he actually mentions a place called Wangaratta, which to me sounds like...
Wangaratta?
Yeah, I think it's because it rhymes better. We are, in fact, heading off to a town near Wangaratta called Eldorado, where we find Natasha Lobban. Good morning to you, Natasha.
Hi, Rob and Neil. How are you?
Doing very well indeed. Thanks for joining us on the regional Roundup. Yesterday, Rob, when I spoke to Natasha, she said, should I do any research? After scoffing and saying, ha, 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 we don't do that here, I did say find out what the rainfall is. So we are going to ask her that question. So, Natasha, tell us, has it been raining much up in your part of the world?
Just a little bit. No, definitely plenty of rain up here at the moment. In fact, it's so wet, people don't even seem to be measuring it very much. I've done a ring around to the neighbours this morning and they've just told me it's wet.
Yeah.
Did you get an answer back saying that, we're a 26-inch rainfall or 22-inch rainfall?
Yeah, there was all a bit over the shop, so I decided not to record. But what I have been told by is they've heard of it, that 150 mils more so far this year than we've had this type than at the same time last year. And from memory, last year was bloody wet, so it's really, really wet at the moment.
I think the time has come, and I assume you get the Jane Bunns and Lavinia Nixons up in your part of the world, do you, Natasha?
We do see both of those on our screens, yeah.
I want Jane Bunn or I can't even say Lavinia Nixon. I'm struggling with that this morning. To come out one night and say, and the weather forecast, bloody wet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that to me would just nail it down, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't think you sound an awful lot younger than me, but I know people talk about it being bloody wet, but I can assure you agriculturally back in the 60s and 70s, you don't really know what bloody wet is. When it got wet, it would stay wet for weeks on end. This is okay. It's wet, it's tolerable, but on a dairy farm, you're just in mud for 3 months of the year. You've got cattle on your farm. Is it that stage where you can't get to places because it's all pugged up with the mud?
Yeah, definitely. You have to be really careful sort of where you're travelling, in what paddock, and what you're going to choose to drive out there. Like we're sort of in the position nearly like most of this winter. It happens every winter. It just feels like it's been happening more this winter, where we're having to sort of put them in containment paddocks so they're not bogging everything up. So
yeah.
Being hand-fed out in paddocks to avoid destroying the entire farm. So that's sort of where we're at with the cattle at the moment.
In 1988, I was the caretaker of a goat farm up near Shepparton for 2 weeks, and they had the paddocks laser graded, so it was perfectly flat, and I got out on a motorbike to go and check out some goats, and forgot the fact that when you ride a motorbike and it's really, 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 really wet, you basically go vertically down into the mud, and I wasn't Mr. Popular, let me tell you. So Wangaratta, and by virtue of being close to Wangaratta, tell us about what Wangaratta's there for. It's about 3 hours drive out of Melbourne on the Hume. Yep. What do people in and around Wangaratta do these days?
Lots of things. Everyone has their preferences, I suppose. Myself, this weekend, I'll be heading into the Eldorado food share this morning when I finish talking with you. So there's lots of sort of little towns have their own events, which attract the locals and people from further afield. So that food share is a monthly event for Eldorado. Everyone brings in excess food from their garden. So depending on the season, I'm sure there's plenty of citrus out there at the moment. I'm taking in some oranges. But yeah, whatever you have in surplus at your garden, you bring it all in and everyone has a cup of tea and they make it a bit of a fundraiser. And that is also throughout the month, we have a cupboard in town which is used for the same purpose. People bring their excess produce. Started up just at the start of COVID, and it's a great community event. So we've got those smaller events that happen all the time. But then I think everyone today it's stopped raining, so I would assume everyone's out checking out the wineries, visiting all the beautiful towns in our region. And there's the footy finals on somewhere. I'm not really up to date with exactly where the footy finals are up to, but I'm sure.
That's okay. There's a program follows us at 11 o'clock, hosted by Rob Cameron, called Sports Fix, and he will no doubt be able to tell us who's in the grand final of the Ovens and Murray League. There's his challenge. He's got 8.5 minutes to find that out before he starts.
It out.
Yeah, no worries at all. So the city of Wangaratta itself, it's the rural city of Wangaratta, as I recall. It's probably one of the top 10 or 15 towns in Victoria by population. How have you seen that particular town over the last 4 or 5 years changing, growing, transforming? What's been going on up there?
We've had a big influx of people during COVID, so everyone's come out from the cities and, wanting to avoid lockdowns and have just really enjoyed the lifestyle that we have here. We've got everything that you could possibly need in regards to shopping, amazing schools, good healthcare, all that kind of stuff. It's all here, so they don't have to worry about commute. Prices, land prices, housing prices are all less. Good lifestyle. Population has really exploded. I don't obviously have the numbers on that, but anecdotally, it's pretty hard to get rentals and things because the population's really booming.
How long have you been in that part of the world?
8 years.
Okay, so
8 years at Eldorado, but I've lived in northeast Victoria for probably nearly 20.
Okay, because I'd be interested to, and probably we'd need to go one generation older than you to ask this question. In 1968, there was a song called Highway 31, where Johnny Chester tells the tale of a man in Melbourne who gets a bit sad and leaves his girlfriend and heads north up Highway 31 and, of course, names all the towns along the way. These days, if you were singing that song, you'd say bypass road, bypass road, bypass road, because none of the towns are visited anymore. The impact of the Hume going around Wang rather than going through it, have you got any sort of sense of how that's changed the town and its lifestyle?
I'm not, so that was before I remember. I do know if there's an accident on the road, like on the freeway and the traffic, because the traffic in Wangaratta is just ridiculous because they all bypass then back through Wangaratta. The town wouldn't function, I don't think, if it was still, I couldn't imagine having the town without the bypass. And then I really think it's just incumbent on people to come off the highway, it's literally 5 minutes off the highway to come into town. Last night we were coming back from Melbourne, and instead of stopping at Euroa Macca's for dinner, we just drove into the town. It's a 5-minute diversion. Really worth it. We found an amazing little local Indian restaurant there that hasn't been open very long. I'd encourage people just to get off the highway when they can. It really doesn't take very long to do, and you never know what you'll find.
Sorry, go. No, you go.
You go, because I'm going to change theme and not
finish. No, because you've got to get up and go to the next.
I just want to talk about agriculture, changing agriculture, focus on environment, getting away from chemicals, more natural farming. You haven't been in it for long. What's the view up around that neck of the woods? Is there more of a focus on environment and concern about climate change in your agricultural neighbours?
It's very mixed here. So Eldorado is a very, progressive, environmentally conscious community as a whole. But they're, depending on the generation, the age of the farmer, how progressive they are, and I would also say how practical they are. Those practices are all very different. So personally, our farm sits somewhere in the middle. So we are aware and conscious of climate change and the impact we're having to our land. So we also believe that farming, to be an actual farmer, you need to farm. So you need to actively be doing something with your property. So chemical use does occur on our property, but we also apply and are conscious of applying nutrients, trace elements, natural fertilisers, worm juice. We do lots of different things. So we're actively farming and improving our soil. We don't believe in organic farming, which is essentially, in many instances, not farming, just leaving the land to do nothing. There are a lot of people around here who do nothing with their land, and we don't agree with that. Don't think that is the right way to do things either.
And of course, and Rob's going to disappear in a moment because he's got to go do the next program. So it seems like it's just me talking. That's what's happened. But you run a consulting firm, I guess you could call it that, around farming and supporting farmers. Are you seeing that sort of move happening, across the farming?
So I write about farmers. So I'm an agricultural journalist. So I don't give advice to farmers on how they should be doing things. But in what I do, it's a broad spectrum, and some people are into organic farming. Some people like to put labels on their farming, like regenerative farming. Some people are first-generation farmers. I don't know. I think as long as you're really actively working to improve your land, you're a farmer.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't like to go too much deeper into it.
No, that's fair enough too. Now, before we get going, because we do only got a couple of minutes, you're 3 hours away, 3.5 hours away from Geelong. If people wanted to come up for the weekend, what would they do for a Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning?
Oh, heaps to do. There are a few events coming up though. So the Wangaratta show is on October 7th and 8th.
Yep.
And the Wangaratta Festival of Jazz and Blues is on October 28th to 30th.
Oh, I hope Willow's listening. He presents the jazz program here on the station. He'll be up there in like a flash, I reckon.
So there are 2 weekends where there's big events, big reasons to kind of come to town and go to those. But other than that, there's, I'm all for the wineries really, but, head to Millawa, try out the cheese factory, head up the Kings Valley, beautiful Italian food, amazing wines. There's, heading to, so many things.
Sounds like a place to get up to. Natasha, thanks for joining us this morning at reasonably short notice. I'm sorry to do that to you. I do this regularly to our regional rounduppers. Great to have a chat and look forward to catching up for a cool drink on a warm afternoon in Wangaratta next time I'm passing through.
Make it Eldorado.
In fact, even better. I forgot about that bit. Yes, we'll do that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Natasha. Natasha Lobban there from Wangaratta/Eldorado. Lives in Eldorado, just a little way outside of town in just outside of Wangaratta.